The big problem is getting started. My father, he started with 4 acres. He bought a bit of land and worked very hard. Nearly now, that's nearly impossible. Obviously, if you're a dairyman, you're in a different league. If it's what you want to do, you'll find a way, and that's in the blood. Ollie Whyte's the name. Whyte Bros is the firm. We're a family farm here with a very long tradition going back. My father started out Whyte Bros in 1942. 7 brothers come along and they all stayed on the farm, and we built up the farm very successfully over the years. Cereals is the main thing, but we're mixed. We do a couple of other things too. We winter fatten maybe 500-600 head of cattle, just to keep the lads all occupied. So we're doing just over 4,000 acres altogether, between cereals, potatoes, grassland, and a good mix of crops. Unfortunately, our eldest brother died, just passed away. He was the main man, and we're still going. His family's still very much involved. Each of us has a son involved in the business, so there's 7 of the next generation deeply involved in the business and taken over from us now at this stage, I suppose. My father, Peter Whyte, started the whole operation. He worked with his own brothers on a small farm and done a bit of cattle with a lorry and delivering hay and cattle to the Dublin market, all that kind of stuff. And he started on tillage in the 30s and 40s and thrashing mills, all that kind of stuff. So the tradition was there. He was a very strong man, very, very strong man about what he was doing. Everything had to be done exactly right, and that has rubbed on to our generation. He was All Ireland ploughing champion in 1947 or 8 now, I'm not just sure which was, but a very protected man, but a great businessman and a great driver of a business. He started with 4 acres, 5 acres he bought from a divide up of an estate, loved machinery, and he constantly built up the farm over a number of years. It's amazing that that time you could buy land from the returns from the crops. Nearly now, that's nearly impossible for a farmer unless you have another business going. Obviously, if you're a dairyman, you're in a different league. He bought a bit of land and worked very hard. We come along and we kept adding to that. Well, he was a great role model, but a major factor in our upbringing was our mother. Our mother was a great, strong woman too. She was the peacemaker, if you like, all along. And I just think of women at that time. Food would be bought to the field, no matter where the field was. Middle of the day, there could be 10 men, 15 men, and the food would be bought. She would buy and rear kids and bring maybe 4 or 5 kids in the car with her doing that. She was a great woman, and both of them lived a very long life, good life. They got great satisfaction out of seeing what we have ended up as, and it's kind of fruits of their labour, if you like. You know, there'll be no messing, that's for sure. My father was very strong about doing what you were doing, and it had to be done right, and the one necessary ingredient was you had to be a work ethic, and that was it. If you hadn't a work ethic, there was no place for you. And I suppose success comes from that, you know. The young lads grew up on the farm with us, and they loved the machinery and driving, and they seen what was happening and what it takes. It takes a massive effort to you're fighting so many things like the weather and the markets and machinery and whatever, all the different factors. And if you're not dedicated to that, if you haven't a work ethic, if you're a fella that wants to go home at 6 o'clock in the evening, you're not going to make it farming. Simple as that, you know. People say we were lucky that the 7 brothers all got on together, and then the 7 sons or nephews or whatever you want to call them come in and work with us. But our wives have been a very strong support to us, and they bought into what we were doing, and you know, if if one of them didn't agree with what was going on, it could cause major problems. But no, they were all very, very supportive, I have to say, and we're lucky that they all get on very well together with one another. They're all the best of friends, and going out with one another, and maybe even 4 or 5 of them could go away for a weekend there together. So that's a bit lucky that all happened, but we'd say we chose well. Over the years, each fella developed a kind of a job, right? So, and that has passed on to the son then. So I drive a combine here, and I used to look after all the fertilizer spreading and all that kind of stuff, and David does a lot of that there now, the son. And but I've shifted. I spend most of my time in the office. Paperwork now is serious, absolutely serious, and especially in the size of what we're doing. But the lads all went and got education. A couple of them have ag science degrees. Peter looks after the agronomy. Heather looks after all the spraying and all the plant protection thing, and he's terrific at that. And himself and Kevin and David and Joe look after the spreading of the fertilizer and that. Peter looks after the yard and the potatoes and that. So they fell in to those jobs and they specialise in them, but they also do everything else too. Like it's not exclusive to one operation. Everyone chips into everything there, you know. A wet day can be interesting because a lot of decisions are made to be all in, and you get all the opinions and everyone gives their opinion, and the great thing about it is you can always deal with people that say what they think. It's the fella that doesn't say what he thinks, you'll always find it hard to satisfy him. If 5 or 6 lads were saying that was the right thing to do, we'd go with that, and if someone said no, then that's it. But we'd be of the same mind. We know what the place needs. So decisions are not that hard, really, you know. A friend of mine used to have a great saying I always liked. It was when you're in company and having a discussion, if more than 2 people are disagreeing with you, it's time to look at yourself. So we look at ourselves a lot, and we get told to look at ourselves a lot, and yeah, it works out well. It's we're all on the one bus, and the destination is the one place for everyone. This is rented land. A lot of the land we have is rented, leased, long-term lease. We're in this farm since 1980, 1 or 2, in farming. My father always had to say, if you looked after the land would look after you, and it's a very important at that time there wouldn't have been the technology we have now to get the science and get all the testing done, but the same principle applies. Look after it right, treat it decently, it'll produce the crops, and it'll look after you. This is a crop of winter wheat. Graham is the variety, and it's doing very well, as you can see there. It's a lovely crop. Started with the winter barley, and then went on to the winter oats and oilseed rape then, and now we're in winter wheat. So we just have a bit of spring barley to come after that, and then beans to finish up. So in all cereals, 3,760 acres with all that, and we do around 200 acres of potatoes that we start harvesting probably in a week or 2. We supply Country Crest and Denigans with those. The biggest factor in growing crops is the weather. It's the biggest challenge we have. The window opportunity for getting work done, getting your sowing done on time, getting your plant protection on, getting your fertilizer on, all those things now are a science. They have to be exactly at the right time. So this year the weather allowed that to happen, and we can see the result in the crops. The crops are very good this year. They wouldn't be record, but they'll be really up there, and the quality of the grain is just first class. So the weather played ball. It's a big advantage to be able to cut all your crops the minute they're coming ripe. There's a crop of wheat, and if you got a wet week on it, it'd drop maybe 3-4 pints on a bushel, and that's weight. You'd lose a ton in every trailer you fill then, you know. So to be able to cut that, you have to be enough machines and enough men to be able to take that harvest when it's ready to go. So we're managing that, but the weather has played ball with us. We haven't had to stop, and we went from one crop to the other. Last year was probably one of the worst year we have had, and it come from the previous back end by the sowing. The rain, it rained and rained and rained, and land got waterlogged, and a lot of seed rotted in the field, and very tough to take because your costs are there, and they're growing grain is not the most profitable thing at the moment, and the reason that is the price. Would you believe we're getting less than what we got in 1980? That's a staggering fact. And what makes that possible is that in the wisdom, the EU and our own department and our own government are allowing cheap feed come from all over the world. We have maize, soya, all genetically modified, coming from the deforested land in Brazil. We have palm kernel coming from Indonesia, and in Indonesia they burn the peatlands to cultivate to grow the crops. Now, could you imagine the carbon footprint of that? All policy in Europe is driven by carbon footprint and climate change and all that, and we're asked to comply with the highest standard. And this stuff comes in and it meets absolutely no standard. Plant protection chemicals that have been banned for 20 years on consumers' health, and it's flying in. 5 to 6 million comes in every year. You won't see it on a label, you won't see it in an advertisement, you won't see it on any promotion. Board B allow it to come into Origin Green, and we have all the audits here for Irish growers. And rightly so, food has to be produced to a high standard, and they allow this other stuff to happen. So that comes in, there's a couple of brokers buy the cheapest in the world, and we're told to compete with that. So that's why we're getting less for it now than we got. Between County Council and Department and all the other audits in the year, something like 10 audits during the last calendar year, and flew through them all. And we'd be happy to comply with them. And then you see this stuff coming in and to tell you then to compete with it. It shouldn't be allowed. It's not fair competition. So it doesn't take a mathematician to realise that doesn't work. Irish grain is produced to this very high standard, European rules, regulations. It's probably the highest regulated of anywhere produced in the world. There's no label for Irish grain. It goes into the same pile as this other stuff. It just does not make sense. We have a premium product and we're taking a bargain basement price for it. There was over 50,000 people growing grain back in the 80s. Today we're reduced now to maybe 5,000 or 6,000. Acreage has dropped seriously in that time. And the reason is it's not profitable enough unless you're very organised and efficient and have a sizable operation. You're not going to survive at it, right? The costs are too high. So the EU come with subsidies and schemes to make up the shortfall. Single farm payment now is only about 40% what it was when it started. So everything is going down, costs are going up. We're looking at the crops, how we can improve that. You take crops today, 4 ton weight is the benchmark. You have to get over that. If you don't get over that, that's a failure. 4.5, we like to get up to 4.5, and 5 is the dream. Realistically, if you look at this, you could buy a house in 1980 for 13,000, a nice 3-bedroom semi-detached. Today you'll pay 450, 500 for it. You could buy a car for, 6,000-7,000 at that stage, a family car. Today you'll pay 35,000 with the same kind of a model. We could buy our fertiliser for 40, 45 euro a tonne. Today, 500 euro a tonne. You could buy this combine one in here. We bought a combine for 33,000, a similar spec to this, a big combine at the time, in 1976 or 77. The same top of the range model now with the new things on it. It costs you 500,000-600,000. So it's not sustainable. It really is not sustainable. So the logic of it escapes me now. This is a New Holland CR 8090, and we have two other ones, 8.90s. They're more modern machines. This one's a 2012 machine. The 8.90, we have two of them. One is on tracks. Yeah, they're big machines to cover. You have to be able to cover the ground fairly quickly, and the amount we're trying to cover here is big area. So a good reliable machine, and there's great backup service with Armstrongs and New Holland. We have always found them good. This machine was second hand we bought. It had the Bizo header. It's a lovely header. It has worked very well. It has great adjustments and all that. And back in 2012, the New Holland header this was a preferred option for a lot of people buying them. The other two commons now, they have the new Vari-Feed New Holland header, which is excellent. The Vari-Feed one has extended table for the oilseed rape, and all that it's 15 minutes, and you convert it for cutting rape, and you have side knives and all that all included in it. So it's capable of every crop. You can set it up in a few minutes for it. You know, all this machinery, the technology now has left them far easier to operate and to manage. The other two combines have the GPS on them, and they have the IntelliCenter on them. And the IntelliCenter is the combine sets itself. Within 30 meters, it sets it to the conditions, and it regulates the speed, it steers itself, and all itself there. So the point in that is you're getting the maximum output from your machine all day. You know, they have fabulous output, but they're a pleasure to drive compared to the old machines. You know, I started pre-cab. I started actually with a bagging machine, and on a bagging, and then when the rain come, you went out and gathered up the bags, and it's a whole different world. These machines cut 80, 90 acres in the day, and we'd on good harvesting days we're taking in about 240 acres between the three machines. And the biggest problem you have is trailers, keeping the stuff away. We have about 8 trailers, and then we have the lorries. We have the new NC trailer, which we purchased last year. That's working out very well. Lovely trailer. The lads are very happy with it now. I don't drive them myself, but they're very happy with it, handling on the road with the heavy weights. We have Smith trailers, and we have Brohan trailers. The three, they're all excellent. They all come from very good manufacturers, and they're all good, safe trailers. Yeah, we were talking about the data. The tractors now are all fitted with the telematics, and it has proved to be wonderful for collecting data for us. So all the tractors that are spraying fertilizer, sowing, all record. They recognize the field, right? And when they go into the field, it takes up the field, and what is done in that field is recorded, and it all goes back to the office, so we can see it in the office. So if I'm in the office now, I can see the yield monitor on the 2 other combines in what field they are, and we use that then to analyse the good, the bad. You know, some crops don't turn out right, and you have to get that data if you're going to improve it. So, and if something does go wrong, and obviously in the area we're covered, you will get an odd place that doesn't just perform as well. You can identify that because soil samples are all done are all on that system. Funny thing is, I believe the older generation were better at observation and holding the memory. My father, when he'd go into a field or whatever, he'd tell you that field, what it was in it 3 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever, and he done this, that, or, you know. Now we look at the phones and we look at the data and whatever else. They stored a lot in their mind, you know, and the ideas that he had still hold very, very well today to stand up to scrutiny now, you know. You were talking earlier about my father buying land and developing the business or whatever else. In 1952, a man with 7 kids or so at that stage, and 5 or 6 acres of land, bought a farm in Kilmessan, 40 kilometres away, 220 acres, and went down there to till it, and with his brothers and lads he had walking for him, and they made that walk 40 kilometres away at that time was completely different than now. Everything had to be loaded onto trailers, corn drills and all that kind of stuff. Disc cutters, you couldn't go on the road with them at that stage, you know. So there were great people to do that at the time, but they could buy the land and they could make it pay. He kept that land for 6 years, and then the home farm we have now in Knoll Park or in Moat Hill, the come up for sale, and he sold the one in Kilmessan and bought the one beside the farm, which was a great decision, you know. But different times, but those men were always, you know, they were probably ahead of the posse really. They didn't need to look up things to know what they had. But then the difference was life would have been simpler for them, and then it wasn't simpler because everything was manual, you know. So, but they weren't dealing with the same. A fella could 70 acres or 80 acres of grain that time, he could make a living out of it. Today, it wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't pay for one trailer, let alone make a living out of it, you know. The lads are very forward thinking, and the adapting of technology. A lot of it is above my head, and I'd say above my pay grade too. But yeah, I still like it. I see what they're doing and I encourage it, and that's the way we always are. You know, that come down from my father too. He had the first self-propelled combine that come into the country. If he seen something that was going to improve the performance of the farm, he was very quick to make his mind up that that was the thing to do. My wife says I should be taking it a bit easier, but I have a great passion for it. I love working with the lads and the young lads, and we get on very well with them. So happy days, why not? Keep going as long as I'm physically I'm fairly in good shape. So, and I'm coming just to 75. I'm not there yet, but I'm coming across the line fairly shortly. What happens in the future? People can get bogged down on that. You know, if the next generation have an interest in farming, so be it, and the framework is there for them to walk, and the model is there, and if they embrace that, so that would be great. If it doesn't, they're individuals, they make their own choices. I would have a little concern that there's easier ways of making a living than what is going on now with this, you know. Love of the land was the reason a lot of people went to farm. If you can't make a decent living out of it and have a work-life balance, maybe love of the land is not good enough a reason to stay there, you know. But what we have seen all down through the generations, if it's what you want to do, you'll find a way. That's it. It's a great way of life. I know we complain about all the stuff going along, but there's nothing more pleasurable than cutting a good crop of wheat, and that's in the blood.